Hello everybody, welcome to MSI, which stands for Murders She Investigated. I'm Zoe. If you are new to MSI, you are invited to subscribe this channel. In this video, we are going to watch Malaysia Air Force plane Inept. In the second and third video of this series, we have talked about when and how MH370 disappeared, including the inaction of the Malaysian Air Force when they had a 60-minute window to react. Many thought the Malaysian Air Force was incredibly inept. Some even got angry at their apparent incompetence. But was the Malaysian Air Force truly so inept? On day one of the MH370 incident, Malaysia Airlines released 6 media statements. Of the first 5, Malaysia Airlines claimed MH370 lost contact at 2:40 on March 8th. The 6th statement was silent on the time contact lost. Then, at 2 o'clock of the next morning, Malaysia Airlines released another statement in which the time contact lost was changed from 2:40 to 1:30. During this period of 18 hours, the Malaysian Air Force was very quiet, as if it had no knowledge and had nothing to do with the incident. Things changed on March 9th. At the 13 o'clock press conference, the chief of the Malaysian Air Force appeared on stage as one of the government officials to update the public about the development of MH370 incident. The chief said that the Air Force reviewed its radar recording of the previous night. There were indications that there was a possibility that MH370 made an air turn back. The chief claimed the Air Force was working with the international agencies to make sense of the civil and the military radar recordings. The keywords here are international agencies. Various representatives from the United States and Great Britain were arriving at Kuala Lumpur to help investigating the incident. They were all experts in various areas and knew where to look and what questions to ask. Inevitably, they would query what the Malaysia military radar system had on the missing MH370. The Malaysian Air Force could no longer pretend it had no knowledge of the MH370 incident. Taking initiative timely was a way to avoid being grilled later. Therefore, the Air Force chief showed up at the press conference and indicated the military radar might have seen something. A news reporter at the press conference asked the chief how much of the air turn back, in terms of kilometers, the military radar observed. Just as the chief was about to answer the question, the head of the Civil Aviation Authority jumped in and said that the government was still looking into it. Now, almost a decade later, we review the statements made by the chief since March 9th of 2014. It appeared that the chief was deliberately releasing information or disinformation bit by bit, like squeezing toothpaste. out of a tube. Until today, the Malaysian Air Force still keeps the bulk of his MH370 related raw radar data secret. In 2018, the MH370 final report affirmed that in the early morning of March 8th, the Malaysian military radar system recognized the aircraft making an air turnback was MH370. It states, on the day of the disappearance of MH370, the military radar system recognized the blip that appeared west after the left turn over IGARI was that of MH370. Speaking of Malaysia's military radar system, the MH370 final report said that the military radar data provided more extensive details of the air turnback. That being said, the MH370 final report immediately followed with disclaimers. It said that the recorded altitude and speed change blip to blip were well beyond the capability of the aircraft, that the altitude and speed extracted from the data are subject to inherent error, and that the only useful information obtained from the military radar was the latitude and longitude position of the aircraft, as this data is reasonably accurate. Do the disclaimers make Malaysia military radar sound like a pile of rubbish? If Malaysia's military radar system was so out of caliber, for the sake of national security, shouldn't it be kept as Malaysia's top military secret? It does not make sense to openly let the world know that Malaysia's defense radar system was, or maybe still is, so inaccurate. Furthermore, the MH370 final report provided an example of what its disclaimers meant. On the screen is a profile chart of data from the military radar system. Looking at the chart, the horizontal axis refers to time in UTC. In Malaysia time, it covers a period from 01:21 and 33 seconds until 02:22 and 12 seconds of March 8, 2014. It is approximately 60 minutes. The red zigzag line at the top refers to the MH370 speed and knots, and the black zigzag line below refers to flight level. The two zigzag patterns are puzzling. It means that MH370 was not at a constant speed or level. To some, the patterns suggest the pilot was flying MH370 as if it was a fighter jet. Others argue that, in reality, it is impossible to fly a gigantic Boeing 777 like a fighter. It is a matter of physics. More mystifying is that the aircraft climbed up to as high as 58,200 feet at about 2 o'clock on March 8th. According to the Boeing company's specifications, the service ceiling for MH370 is 43,100 feet. How could Malaysia's military radar return a height of 58,200 feet for MH370? Some argued bluntly, It was a profile chart of data from a fighter jet, not from MH370. Malaysia had Russian-made fighters, Su-30 then. The service ceiling for Su-30 was 56,800 feet. Malaysia might have other models of fighter that could reach 58,200 feet then. The MH370 final report also provided a figure showing how MH370 diverted from its filed flight plan to a diversion route. The figure is on the screen. The solid line indicates MH370 filed flight plan. The dotted line indicates the diversion route, starting from position 1 to position 10. This figure can be viewed as an assertion made by the MH370 final report. The assertion is that the diverted MH370 flew along Malaysia's border adjacent to Thailand, crossed the Malay Peninsula, and reached the sky above the Malacca Strait. Usually, the sky above a nation's border is zoned military and restricted. It is watched closely by the nation's military radar system. MH370 navigated in and out of Malaysia's restricted airspace. Yet, Malaysia's Air Force did not respond to the situation. No fighter jet was dispatched to intercept MH370. Why? Here is the explanation offered by the MH370 final report. Quote, the military long-range air defense radar with primary surveillance radar capabilities affirmed that it was MH370 based on its track behavior, characteristics, and a constant continuous track pattern and trend. Therefore, the military did not pursue to intercept the aircraft since it was friendly and did not pose any threat to national airspace security, integrity, and sovereignty. Unquote. The key word in this explanation is friendly. Let's review how military radar system works first before we continue the MH370 incident. Radar technologies came out before World War II and have been evolving since. Originally, the word radar was an acronym for radio detection and ranging. A basic form of radar technology uses an antenna at the radar station to transmit radio signals in a particular direction. The signals transmitted are in short bursts of electromagnetic energy, called pulses. When the signals reach an object, they echo back to a receiver at the radar station. The signals echoed back collectively, quote, paint, unquote, an image of the object, such as an airplane, a missile, and so forth. Based on the time it takes to receive the echoes, one can calculate how far the object is and the position of the object in relation to the radar station. The result is then displayed on a radar monitor as a blip. A working military radar beams the sky in a circle once every few seconds and receives echoes continually when an object is within the radar range. The blips shown on the radar monitor give the heading of the object. One can also use the known factors to further calculate the speed of the moving object. This is basically how a primary surveillance radar works. Notice that of the information a primary surveillance radar provides, it does not include if an aircraft is friendly or not. To determine if an aircraft is friendly, a commonly used method is IFF, meaning identification, friend or foe. IFF is a radar-based system. Once a primary surveillance radar detects an airplane, the antenna at the radar station sends out coded pulses to that aircraft. The coded pulses are usually a question when decoded. A transponder on the aircraft receives and decodes the signals, finds a matching response to the question, codes the response, then transmits the coded response back to the radar station. The radar station receives and decodes the response. If the response is as expected, the aircraft is deemed friendly. Otherwise, immediate military actions are warranted. Depending on the situation, military actions may include using radio communications to warn the intruding pilot, dispatching fighter jets to intercept the aircraft, or even shooting down the plane if the intruder is an enemy. IFF is a mature concept. Given how it works, there is no reason to doubt that Malaysia's military radar troops were IFF trained. Yet, MH370 final report says the Malaysian Air Force determined MH370 was friendly based on, quote, its track behavior, characteristics, and the constant continuous track pattern and trend, end quote. The MH370 final report is more likely fooling the public to cover up that the IFF procedures were actually carried out by the Malaysian military radar troops. In order for an IFF system to conclude a friendly status for an aircraft, a prior arrangement is necessary so that the transponder on that friendly aircraft knows the matching response to the question sent from the military radar station. A prior arrangement means the Malaysian Air Force was aware in advance of the diversion to be carried out by MH370. In other words, the diversion of MH370 was a pre-planned secret military action. Those who thought the Malaysia Air Force was remarkably inept were probably fooled. This is all on Malaysia Air Force playing inept. If you are new to MSI, you are invited to subscribe this channel. If you are already a subscriber, a thumb up is appreciated. Feel free to share this channel with others. The MH370 incident deserves everybody's attention worldwide for the sake of safe public air traveling. Next time, the video will be about the 6 accounts of contact time lost. See you then.